Wow, what a wild direct that was. Just banger after banger. I think you would have to be the most pessimistic Nintendo fan of all time to have not been blown away by at least one thing in that direct. Obviously, as Zelda fans, we made out like bandits, and we'll get to all of that, but I also want to briefly acknowledge some of the other cool stuff we got. Pikmin 4 looks really nice, the Metroid Prime remaster is amazing, a new Professor Layton is awesome, the Bite and Kaidos remaster looks great. If you guys have never checked that franchise out, I highly recommend it. Something of a hidden gem on the GameCube. And of course, personally, I am so happy that we finally are getting the Advanced Wars remakes. Please go buy those games, guys. But of course, let's talk about the Zelda stuff. I'll talk about the Nintendo Switch Online stuff, and then we'll get into the trailer. I'm not going to analyze it because I'm just not very good at that, and there are plenty of other channels who do it better, but I am going to talk about some highlights and how I feel about them. First things first, the Nintendo Switch Online update. We're getting Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. How cool is that? I think we all saw Game Boy and kind of expected that to be the update, and I honestly wouldn't have been unhappy with that. But then they revealed the Game Boy Advance too, and I was just blown away. I have historically been a huge critic of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pass, but I think that it's reached the point of really great value, and I can no longer gripe about it. I do still think that all this stuff should have been there in the very beginning, but it's better late than never. And as a result of Game Boy being added, we now have access to the Zelda Game Boy games, or at least we will have access to all of them eventually. Currently, we have access to Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy Color and Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advanced, and the Oracle games are going to be added at a later date. So Link's Awakening is my fourth favorite Zelda game of all time, and I think the remake is really great, but I don't think it replaces the original. The original has a certain vibe that's created through a mixture of the sprite art and the 8-bit music that's just utterly immaculate, and it's not replicated perfectly by the remake. So I would recommend you to still check the original out if you've never played it. I think you'll have a really good time. There are parts of it that haven't aged well, like inventory restrictions by necessity of only having 2 buttons, but you'll enjoy yourself. Minish Cap is really exciting for me. It isn't one of my favorite 2D games, but it's still really excellent, and it has the best sprite work of the entire series. I know that it's actually one of the most underplayed Zeldas, surprisingly enough. I quite often run into people saying that they haven't played Minish Cap, even if they're diehard fans of the series. Well, now you have no barriers, you can go check it out. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Minish Cap is a really excellent game. And of course, in the future we're getting my beloveds, the Oracle games. I tend to consider them 2 parts of one game in terms of lists and stuff like that, and collectively they are my 3rd favorite Zelda game of all time. I like them better than all the other 2D games, and I like them better than most of the 3D games. They are elite. The dungeon design is unparalleled, the world building is excellent. The Oracle games are 2D Zelda at its best in my opinion, or at the very least are its most interesting. And if you play Seasons, you'll learn where I got my avatar from. So it's pretty exciting to see that all these 2D games are coming to the service. The Wii U used to be the definitive platform to play Zelda games on, and it still is if you bought them all because it has the DS games, but this is a big step in the right direction. I really hope that we see 4 Swords added eventually, but even if we don't, this is still pretty good. And of course, we got that trailer. The release date is solidified, and a pretty good looking collector's edition was announced, but I know we're all here to look at the actual trailer, so let me go over my highlights with you. One thing I'd like to acknowledge right off the bat is that the tone of the game is incredible. I know we were all wondering what exactly they meant when they talked about this game being a little darker than Majora's Mask, and a lot of people, myself included, thought that people were overanalyzing that statement, but I think I understand now. Breath of the Wild was a post-apocalyptic game, but this is an apocalyptic game. Like, things are going to hell. At every moment of the trailer, it just looks like the land is being torn asunder. Monsters everywhere you can see, natural disasters, malice seeping from the ground. This looks like maybe the most under fire Hyrule has ever been, with the exception of the Night of the Calamity. Really impressive stuff. I am also really impressed with the degree to which Nintendo has managed to make the overworld look distinct. I hope people understand now why this game has been taking so long. Nintendo has clearly been putting a lot of effort into making the overworld distinct and interesting to travel. I think a lot of people have been sort of thinking that Tears of the Kingdom was going to be a sort of Breath of the Wild 1.5 type thing, but to me that has obviously never been the case. It has always been obvious to me that they've wanted to make the next mainline Zelda game not just a sequel to Breath of the Wild, and I think the fruits of their labor are being shown off in this trailer. There are very few shots where the environment looks, indistinguishable from the first game. There's new monsters or terrain elements almost anywhere you look. I find that really impressive, and I can't wait to dig into it. I think this clip with the stalactites and the stalagmites confirms that we're getting an expansive underground area, which I'm really happy to see. I absolutely adore underground areas in video games, and I think the fact that we aren't just going above Hyrule but underneath it is such a cool thing. I really can't wait.
Rise, rise, my servants. Sweep over Hyrule. Eliminate this kingdom and her allies.
Look, maybe I'm going to catch some flack for this, but I think Ganondorf's voice is not good. Keep in mind, I don't think that most of the voice acting in Breath of the Wild in general was very good, so it's not like it's a big point of contention for me, but the way he delivered that line was just extremely hammy, which I guess makes sense. Ganondorf is a pretty hammy guy, but it's just not personally my cup of tea. I'm sure plenty of people loved his performance though, and again, in no way, shape, or form is it a deal breaker for me. I see that three-headed dragon on the bridge. Is that Gleeok? Gleeok is literally one of my favorite Zelda bosses of all time, and if he's back in this game, I will be so happy. I've talked for a long time about how I think it would be really amazing if they included all of the bosses from the original Legend of Zelda as overworld bosses, and if that is Gleeok, it makes me think that it's a possibility. Maybe we'll have Goma in the caves and Aquamentus guarding a labyrinth. That would be pretty exciting. I could be totally off base, but this clip of Link standing on this portal or switch and guardian arms coming out all around him makes me think this might be a sort of scene where at first he worries the guardian arms are going to attack him, but then they help him somehow, and it makes me wonder if we will have Sheikah on our side this time. Also, I'm glad we can lay to rest the silly idea that Sheikah isn't going to be in this game. I always thought that was total nonsense. I sure hope there's a way in which we get to ride on those creatures. I know we spent a long time talking about how that robot in the previous trailer might be a friend because he has green energy just like Link's hand as opposed to the red energy from Ganondorf, but this big guy trying to turn Link into paste makes it pretty obvious that this will not be the case. It seems to me like we might not be getting shrines anymore because possibly the puzzles that would have been in the shrines are just being integrated into the overworld now, and I'm honestly all in favor of that. Okay, these two scenes here, one of Zelda reaching out to Link's arm and the other of Zelda falling. They make me both more and less worried about the state of Zelda in this game. I've been very vocal about the fact that I really just don't want Zelda to be dead in this game or captured the entire time. I think that's just a really lame thing to do, and I have a video coming out later this week that gets into the nitty-gritty of why I feel that way. And this trailer has both made me feel better and worse about this. It makes me feel worse because look at Zelda in this clip, she looks like a spirit, and the way her voice talks to Link from a distance, just like in the original, makes me think there's a good chance she is no longer of this mortal coil. And I really hate that. I find it hugely disappointing. I'm not going to get too much into the specifics of why in this video because again I have an entire video coming out on that this weekend, but for me it's really disappointing to see that. However, part of the reason that I found it so disappointing is because I thought it would be so lame for them to take such a great rendition of Zelda and sideline her completely for another game. But this trailer seems to suggest that that won't be the case. Even if she is killed, it seems as though she will still be in frequent contact with us through a voice in Link's head, as well as seemingly in spirit form. Which, you know, I would still prefer her to be alive, but it's much better. It's closer to her appearance in Spirit Tracks, and if it's anything like that in this game, I would actually be totally fine. My main thing is I just don't want her to be out of the entire game because she's captured or killed. And if she is killed but continues to accompany us in spirit form, then that's totally fine. I'm fine with that. Again, I would still prefer her to be alive, but you know, I'll take what I can get. The vehicles. Okay, I know this is something that's going to be really contentious. Some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it, but this personally made me giddy when I saw the little go-kart and the blimp in the air. One of my favorite glitches in Breath of the Wild was the one that lets you make a flying minecart, and I absolutely adored the Master Cycle when it was added in the DLC. So the fact that we're getting more vehicles is hugely exciting for me. I love that they added in something that is basically just a minecart made into a vehicle. It's such a weird little detail that I think most people will just think nothing about, but personally for me, the vehicles were an absolute huge point of excitement. I hope we can get all sorts of vehicles, and not just the 3 that we've seen, but even just those 3 are so cool. And the last thing I want to mention, look at this clip of Zelda falling. She has such a look of terror on her face, and I have a lot of respect for Link diving in to save her so recklessly like that. It gives me hope that maybe she will be fine, maybe Link catches her, maybe his arm extends out and grabs her. But again, that spiritual Zelda kind of makes me worried. But I just hate this look on her face, it makes me so sad. And that's the trailer. What a great trailer. I think they hit the perfect balance of giving us some explicit story details without delving too far into things, as well as giving us a really good look at some of the new gameplay features while keeping lots of surprises. I really hope this trailer succeeds in satiating the people who are talking about how they're not hyped for the game and they don't understand how it could be too big of an improvement and things like that. I think this trailer really goes to show the work that they put in. I don't know why people ever doubted the Zelda team. I mean, it's the Zelda team, come on. They don't make bad games. Okay, maybe they made one bad game, but for the most part, they don't make bad games. They're one of the few teams in this industry that can be reliably counted on to make banger after banger, and it is of no surprise to me that Tears of the Kingdom looks like it'll continue continue this pattern. Yes, it's taking longer than we wanted, but it looks to me so obvious to be the case that it's going to be worth it. What do you guys think? Are you excited about what you saw? Are you worried? Do you have any complaints? What's your favorite thing you saw? And how did you like the Direct overall, other than just the Zelda stuff? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and you want to support me, you can come over to my Twitter and follow me, join my Discord and come chat with us, or join my Patreon and take part in the Subrosian Parade if you'd like to support a little more directly. Regardless, just watching the video is very meaningful to me, so thank you. As always, stay safe out there. And watch out for that freaky 3-headed dragon on the bridge. Holy crap. If you gotta walk on the bridge, bring a friend so that thing doesn't murder you, because it's dangerous to go alone.